Hello and welcome again to FAIRtax Power Radio. I'm Bob Paxton.
And I'm Ron Malero.
And we are the FAIRtax Guys. And it's just about here. Next week at this time, we will be at CPAC.
Yeah, we'll be broadcasting live from CPAC. So we're going to be there Thursday, Friday, and Saturday of next week, the 22nd, 23rd, and 24th, broadcasting live. That means live means it's going to go to Spreaker. That is our main platform, Spreaker.com. If you go to Spreaker.com, search for the FAIRtax Guys or search for FAIRtax Power Radio. Either one will get you to our page. And when we're broadcasting live, boom, there we are. We'll pop right up.
The broadcast schedule is kind of going to be put together on the fly, so we can't say right now exactly what hours we'll be on. We are thinking at the moment, of course, this is subject to change according to conditions on the ground when we get there, but we're thinking we'll do an hour in the morning and an hour in the afternoon at the very least. May do more than that if Elaine is really good at capturing people and bringing them over here to us.
Yep.
And, of course, we'll be doing Facebook Live as well for the same time. So when we have a broadcast time established, we'll go ahead and post it up on our Facebook page, the FAIRtax Guys.
Yep.
And you can get maybe a 30-minute notice. In 30 minutes, we'll be live on Spreaker and stuff like that. So keep your eye on that. And again, if we've asked you before, if you've got a question that you want us to pose to someone, on your behalf, send it to us at the FAIRtaxGuys@gmail.com. Obviously can't guarantee that we can get the person that they want in all cases, but we'll try to be the conduit through which you can ask questions to people at the CPAC as well. If you would send those questions to us at the FAIRtaxGuys@gmail.com or put them on our Facebook page. And again, look for us from the floor of CPAC. We've got a corner booth there in the vendor area. That's going to be a really cool place.
Yeah, that's a good location. And the nice thing about our live broadcast being coming over the Spreaker platform is that once we finish that particular broadcast, it's automatically saved as a podcast on Spreaker.com on our page. So, I realize people are working and so forth, and you can't, necessarily tune in while you're working, but you can listen to us later. I mean, just like everybody else that makes podcasts, whether, all the talk shows, they all have podcasts.
Yep.
So, and we will too.
So if you can't catch it live, you can catch the archived version later on of the day or the next day or whenever you can get to it.
There is one difference between our podcast and the others.
Which is?
We don't have commercials.
Absolutely. I hate commercials. They paid my salary for a long time when I was in commercial radio, but as a consumer of radio product now, I don't like commercials at all. But I'll tell you what, we need to get back to our state of taxation thing. Yep. But before we do, real quick, let's toss out one more time the mascot thing that we're working on.
Oh, yeah.
That we've got. It was suggested by someone here in Florida that the FAIRtax needed a mascot or a character like the Aflac Ducks or the Budweiser Frogs they had a while back. We need something, that folks could visually associate with the FAIRtax. And we're asking people to send us their ideas. We've got a dollar bill.
Yeah.
We've got a badger that's, to root out.
A beagle.
And a raccoon. We've got several things. I like the tax fairy, FAIR, capital where Y. So that works as well. But anyhow, if you have an idea of what kind of a mascot and how we could use it, not just what it should be, but how it could be used and how it ties into the FAIRtax. We'd like to hear your ideas on what the FAIRtax mascot ought to be. Again, the FAIRtaxGuys@gmail.com or on our Facebook page. And, of course, we'll forward everything we get to the powers that be that are going to make the ultimate decision.
Yep.
Right.
The fellow that sent in the idea for the dollar bill, or he said perhaps the $100 bill, he also included a scenario as to how it might be used, which is very helpful. But that's a good idea. It could be a dollar bill. Or
Indeed.
It could be a FAIRtax beagle.
The dollar bill that would rather be in your pocket than in the IRS.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep. Okay,
well, I tell you what, since it's the last episode, time got away from us really bad here. We need to continue with our state of taxation, which it stinks, no doubt about that.
Yeah.
But we were talking about the three different states of taxation, the three different elements that make up the state of taxation, the compliance costs, which we kind of need to review a little bit, and then move on to the identity theft part of it, and of course the evasion that we've been talking about here on FAIRtax Power Radio for a while as well.
Yep. So compliance costs, we've talked about this before. For many of the small businesses across the country, there's millions and millions of small businesses, mom and pop stores, and companies with, say, 50 or less employees. Compliance costs are actually a greater expense than the actual tax itself, because it takes so much. There's so much paperwork. There's so many regulations. You have to search the tax code to make sure you're not only complying with the regulations, but taking advantage of the legal avoidance maneuvers. If you can legally lower your tax burden, you should do it. Especially if you're a business, because if you're paying more in expenses than you should, then that's not a very good business. So the compliance cost is very high for these folks. The fair tax makes it so simple. I mean, there's no income tax.
Yeah, the fair tax gets rid of compliance costs almost entirely. There'll be a little bit because there's always going to be some, time and effort, your man hours, your time is worth something when you're running a business.
Yeah.
And the time that you're spending complying with the tax code is not time that you're putting into improving your business and stuff. So there'll still be a little bit of that in there. But the compliance costs under the remember, the fair tax is a consumption tax. It is paid at the cash register. It is collected anonymously. You never, as an individual, will never have to file another income tax return in your life. As a business, you will never have to file another business income tax return in your life. And as we saw in the last episode, the U.S. business income tax return is the number one most expensive form that the IRS has in terms of how many hours it takes to deal with it and how much it costs to deal with it. And the individual income tax return is second.
Yeah.
So you knock those two forms. If you just knock those two forms out alone, compliance costs in both time and money goes way down. But if you eliminate the entire income tax, get rid of the entire income tax, never spend another dime figuring out an employee's withholding. Never spend another dime, saving receipts and filling out these returns and hiring a tax lawyer, or in individual cases, just as simple as going on TurboTax.
Yeah.
And something I found the other day, which was kind of cool, I was on my bank's site that issues my credit card, and they had a little thing in there, file your federal income tax for free, using H&R Block software. So, that sounds good. Until you read back and say, well, of course, there's always a catch there.
Yeah.
If you use that free service, then the bank gets your tax return data and they will use it to market stuff to you.
Oh.
So if you let the banks use that service free, then you're signing up for more spam. So there's the little public service announcement for anybody that sees that. Imagine if one bank's doing it, more than one is doing it. So if your bank or credit card issuer is offering you the chance to file your income tax for free, look and be sure. I can guarantee they will get your tax data and they will use it against you.
Yeah, there's sometimes there's no such thing as free. Somebody pays for it.
And all of that goes away under the fair tax. It all goes away with the fair tax. Again, you simply pay a consumption tax, a sales tax at the cash register when you buy things, new goods and services. Used goods are not taxed. Education is not taxed. But it's that simple. You pay your sales tax when you buy something. End of story.
Simple, anonymous, efficient, and the computers do most of the work.
Yeah,
so
your compliance cost goes down to zero if you're an individual.
Individuals will have no requirement to file an income tax return. So forget about it. You go to the store, you buy stuff, you pay for a service, you're done. You've met your obligation, and businesses will see a huge drop in their compliance costs.
Yeah, because most of it's automated. Because there are already 45 states have a state sales tax that the businesses are dealing with. The point of sale software that handles all that stuff already knows how to handle that, no problem at all. So the fair tax will knock your compliance costs way down, probably more than 90%. But we need to move on to the state of taxation.
Yeah, that's right.
We've got two more little prongs to talk about: evasion and ID theft. Let's go with evasion first.
Okay. All right. Yep. I got my stack of stuff here. Oh, wait a minute. I think somebody else uses that term.
But that's not a pile of municipal waste, is it? Oh.
All right.
That's an inside joke. If you didn't listen to last week's episode, go back and listen to it and figure out what that's all about.
Yep. Or you can go to congress.gov and find out, too. Anyways, there is a lot of evasion of this income tax, and they've been tracking it for a long time. I've got this one. Let's see. This is from a website called Demos, DEMOS. I'm not, and I don't have a date on this, but the data they list evasion in billions of dollars, people who are not paying the income tax that they should be paying, either by not reporting income or over-reporting their deductions. And the federal government has been trying to track this as best they can for a long time. And from 2001 to 2010, I'm not going to list each one, but a total of $3.09 trillion was evaded. $3.09 trillion. Now, we have a study that was completed last March that the Americans for Fair Taxation paid for. Dr. Sabula of Jacksonville University here in Jacksonville, Florida, is an expert on tax evasion. He and another professor did a study back in 2012, and they had to update it. And to update those studies, it cost like $20,000 to $30,000. I think it was more than that. And fortunately, they got a nice donation to pay for that. So they updated it, and he projected ahead from 2017 to 2026, using government figures, $9.1 trillion in cumulative tax evasion. It's getting worse. And you can see, because there's another chart that I found I went through that study. I did not read it. It's like 56 pages long, the report on that study. And I was looking for some charts that, gave us an idea of the evasion rate over the years. And I found one that goes back to 1950. So they've been tracking evasion. They've been trying to figure out evasion for a long time. And what struck me is that from 1950 up through 1979 in one graph, the evasion rate hovers around 10 to 12%. It doesn't vary that much. A couple of years it was down in the 8s and so forth, and back up in the 11s, but pretty steady at, somewhere around 10%. And then the next chart goes from 1980 to 2005. And again, it's 10, 12%, drops down a little bit. But then in 2001, it's 2002, it's 13.5. And then it goes up to 14.2, 13.9, 14.8. So you're seeing a significant increase there in the evasion rate for some reason. And then, and that's part of what they used. Their evasion projection for the next 10 years is $9.1 trillion cumulative. That breaks down because they figure out the number of households that are in the country and what it's costing each household. So it's costing your household and my household in higher taxes and higher cost of goods and services, $5,365. That was last year.
Now, I have an official question for you.
Sure.
This big tax reform bill that just passed that the president signed last month or in December, what kind of provisions in that reform, and I say that with quotes around it, are going to address this problem?
I'm going to have to work on that one, Bob, because
probably not very long, though.
Yeah, I don't think there was anything in there to solve the problem of evasion. Evasion is a huge problem.
You're right. Absolute zero.
Yeah, exactly. And the reason is that you've got a 19th century income tax system that cannot deal with a 21st century America. People are earning money in different ways. I've heard anywhere from a third to 4/10 of the economy now is non-traditional workers. People who, everybody used to work for somebody and get a W-2, and that's how they figured out what your income was. Now we've got people doing all kinds of things. For instance, you ordered something from California. And
I did.
Yep. And you get on the, what is it, U-Ship or something?
I get on U-Ship.
Yep.
Yeah. This was an antique railroad signal. The thing weighs about 800 pounds. And
Bob is a railroad guy.
It's coming from California to Florida, and I did not call a regular trucking company. I did not call FedEx. I did not call any of these things. I went on an internet site called U-Ship and said, I've got this shipment. It needs to get from Foothills Ranch, California to Ocala, Florida. Who wants to haul it for me, and how much are you going to charge? So people, bid on the thing. I picked the bid, And it's coming to me. But that was not a traditional shipment. And people are on there. There's a whole television show, I think it's on the Discovery Channel or one of those channels, called Shipping Wars, that goes several people, several different folks, and sometimes it's a husband and wife team or whatever, that get on this UShip website, and they compete for these loads. So they're not getting a W-2 from anybody. They're getting paid by the shipper. That's it. They don't get a W-2. They don't get a 1099. I mean, how is the government going to track that income?
Yeah, and the thing, technically it's not legal and so forth, but the economy is changing. People, because of the internet and because of these connections, we couldn't do that like 30 years ago.
Nope.
No, you had to call a trucking company. Now you've got the internet, you've got these interpersonal connections that are very quick and very simple, and you've got people doing UShip, you've got people that are driving as an Uber driver, you got people that have an eBay store. I know one lady has a mobile notary service, notary public service.
Now, we should note that not everybody that does those things is evading the tax, but a lot of them are.
But it's really hard for them. If you have 4 or 5 of these little micro businesses, how are you going to keep track of everything? I mean, doesn't it kind of exhaust you? Don't you want to spend your time actually running your businesses than filling out paperwork? You've got a 19th century tax system in a 21st century America, and it ain't working anymore.
Yes, and what the politicians call tax reform does absolutely nothing to fix this problem. I have an idea. Why don't we charge people their federal tax at the cash register when they buy things?
Hey, I think you're onto something there, Bob.
I think I'm onto something there, too. And
that would be very fair, wouldn't it?
That proposal has been in Congress every year since 1999, and our Congress critters have done absolutely nothing with it. We, the people, have got to make that change.
By the way, the Fair Tax Bill has more co-sponsors than H.R. 1, which was the tax bill that the president signed in December. H.R. 1 had, I think, 24 co-sponsors. We got almost double.
Yeah, and I guarantee you that the fair tax provision does not include a definition of municipal solid waste. As the current tax code does, believe it or not. We learned that on Congress.gov.
Yep.
So I still can't get over that one.
So, anyways, the evasion rate is a serious problem. It's projected to get worse every year for at least the next 10 years, as long as we maintain an income tax. We cannot maintain an income tax. This system is going to implode under its own weight, under evasion. Now, is Congress going to do something about it before it becomes a crisis? Well, they will if we force them to.
Yeah, I tell you, and when they finally, I think they are just starting to figure this out. That, if there's one thing that Congress critters from both sides of the aisle can agree on 100% is that we love to spend other people's money. After we take it from them, we love to spend. And when they figure out that the system by which the money they are collecting is leaving literally trillions of dollars on the table, they may one day wake up and say, hey, let's get people to pay their federal taxes at the cash register when they buy things, and they can't evade us. Yeah,
because how are you going to evade a sales tax? Does that happen in your experience?
Not really,
go to
because
the store?
It takes 2 people to evade a sales tax.
That's right.
The buyer and the vendor.
Yeah.
Right now, if you're just a dishonest taxpayer, there are ways to manipulate the system. You don't need any outside help to do that.
That's right.
But if you're going to evade a consumption tax like the fair tax, not only do you have to conspire to evade it, the person that you are buying your goods and services from also has to conspire to evade it, and they have got a really, really compelling reason not to do that.
Yeah, it's called jail.
It's called jail, and they'll go out of business and stuff like that, yes.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to go into one of these big box stores and buy a new TV and somehow talk them into not charging you the sales tax. Ain't going to happen, okay? And the small amount, there might be a tiny amount of evasion under a sales tax. We're not going to collect sales tax for kids that are mowing your lawn or up north shoveling snow. We don't care about that. That doesn't amount to a hill of beans, all right? So, and if you buy a car from if you buy a used car, guess what?
No fair tax.
That's right.
Used items does not tax used goods.
Yeah. Yep. So that's another benefit. So yeah, evasion under a consumption tax is extremely low. But the evasion under the current income tax is a serious, serious problem, and one that we really need Congress to take a strong look at, because if they ignore the problem, it's only going to get worse. So you're the answer to that, my friends. You, the listener, you're the ones that are going to make Congress perk their ears up. So do your job, do your due diligence, and call your Congress critters and make sure they understand that this evasion is a huge problem. The income tax is going to implode under its weight, and they need to get on top of it and do something about it.
You could not design, we've said this before, you could not design a system that is more fraud-prone and more error-prone than the current income tax.
That's right.
You couldn't take a clean slate of paper and do that.
They've had over 100 years to screw it up, Bob.
Oh, you have. Well, we got a little under 10 minutes left in this episode. We need to hit the identity theft part of it, which is something that a lot of folks don't really think about when you think of what are some of the problems with the tax code.
Oh, and identity theft. Now, this is one that really hits home. I mean, if it happens to you, I think I saw 326 million people in this country. And identity theft hits hundreds and thousands of them. Sometimes it hits, the criminal gets all they need is your social security number and your birth date, your name and address. Boom, they're in business. All right.
Yeah, we've got some people that had a rather lucrative business. They had, literally thousands of tax refunds sent to the same address, and the IRS finally caught on to them.
Yeah, but it's spit out by computers. Even if you got 100,000 IRS agents, when you got tens of millions of tax returns, they don't look at them, the computers do. And if there's no red flags, the computers are set up, if they see, certain figures that don't add up, the computers automatically, raise a red flag, and then something happens there. But if the numbers, look feasible, they just spit out a refund check and send it along.
Yeah, I know. When I do my taxes with TurboTax, at the very end of it, it gives me an assessment of how likely my return is to be audited.
That's right.
And thankfully, it's down in the very low every time. I got a very simple return. I take the standard deduction. I don't do a lot of other stuff like that. So my chances of getting audited are pretty low.
Yeah, because we're retired. I mean, we don't do all this stuff that we do is volunteer, and Bob does a lot of volunteer work with his church and so forth. So, I mean, our finances are extremely simple at this point. All right, so yeah, we're not going to, but it's still possible for us to be a victim of ID theft.
Absolutely.
Yep. This is from myidcare.com. It's one of those services that they want to sell to you to protect your ID. I'm actually with another one. Most of us breathe a sigh of relief when tax season is over. Unfortunately, the end of tax season no longer means the end to tax worries, because identity thieves are working on tax fraud schemes all year long. They're hacking. We hear about the dark web and so forth. And you hear about companies that their computers get broken into, and they capture people's Social Security numbers. We don't know if our Social Security numbers have been compromised. We won't find out about it. For instance, I need to get going and get my tax return done. I really need to do it now, but I'm so busy with this FAIRtax stuff.
Trying to get rid of that tax return.
But it's possible. The scenario could be I do my tax return. I use TurboTax like Bob does. Get it done, send it in, and the IRS says, no, we can't accept this one because you already submitted your tax return. Oh, wait a minute, hold it. No, I didn't. Yeah, somebody else did it, and they got a refund. All right, now what do I have to do?
You've got a long road ahead of you to get that fixed.
This is a terrible problem, all right? According to a recent interview, recent news release from the IRS, criminals are increasingly mounting attacks against taxpayers. They use phishing emails. Time is going fast, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Software companies. Sometimes the companies, the tax preparers, sometimes they're the victims. They'll get a cost. Hi, this is Mike from the software company. We need to do an update on your tax software. Well, it wasn't Mike from the software company. It was Mike the thief. And he now has access to all the information that tax preparer has. He's got all their information, their Social Security numbers and everything.
Let me ask you another question. In this big tax reform bill that just passed, how many provisions were in there to deal with this problem?
I'm going to have to work on that for a while.
No, you're not. You know the answer to that right off the top of your head. Same as the answer to the last one.
Yep.
Zero. The
Yep.
tax reform does absolutely nothing to bring down compliance costs. It does absolutely nothing to address this problem of identity theft. The system is as leaky as a sieve, and the politicians will not fix it.
To give you an idea of the scope of this, all right, here's another one. This one is from CBS. IRS identity theft plunges as criminals blocked from stealing refunds. Wow, that sounds great, Bob.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Washington, the number of identity theft victims plunged last year as the IRS made headway combating this problem and so forth. And in the next paragraph it says, the number of victims dropped by 46% to 376,000 people. So after this
it's
big
still
drop,
a major problem.
Yeah, 376,000 people are still victims of identity theft via the tax code. All right, this is a huge problem.
Are you convinced that the system needs not only just tweaking and reforming, it needs replacing? We need to absolutely pull the income tax out by the roots, repeal the 16th Amendment, get rid of the income tax forever, and replace it with a simple, fair consumption tax that you pay at the cash register when you make a retail purchase of new goods and services. That is the fair tax.
And does anybody know of ID theft via a compliance consumption tax?
No.
Right? Does anybody
Doesn't make any difference because the consumption tax doesn't care who you are.
Yeah, it's anonymous.
It is. You had one more little piece of information here we want to throw in before we get there. This was talking, I kind of put this more under evasion than identity theft. This is the number of people who have renounced their American citizenship.
Yeah.
You've got a graph on that from 1998 to 2016. And of course, we can't say that the tremendous uptick in the number of people who have renounced their American citizenship is to avoid and evade taxes. There are other reasons to want to do this, but the numbers are staggering. 1998, 398 people renounced their American citizenship. In 2016, 5,411. And
the graph shows a huge increase the last 4 or 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe, I believe that that's the result of the IRS going after these people. Now, these people live in a foreign country. They work for a foreign country. They spend their money in a foreign country, but the IRS believes that they are U.S. citizens and therefore they should pay U.S. taxes. And they're saying, no, we don't,
Okay. Before we run out of time, let's encourage people one more time to send us the ideas on what the fair tax mascot ought to be and how we could use it.
Yeah.
Think the Geico gecko and the Budweiser frogs, the Aflac duck, things like that. Think of something that the fair tax movement could use, and what would be a good idea for that. You can send it to us at the FAIRtaxGuys@gmail.com, or you can put it on our Facebook page. We'd like that too. We want to hear from you. And also member.fairtax.org. That is a new community for fair tax supporters across the country, actually around the world, because the internet goes around the world, can get together and talk about the fair tax.
Yep. And next week, again, we'll be broadcasting live. We'll do our best to get the message out as to when we're doing it. We'll be on Spreaker, so you go to Spreaker.com, look for the FAIRtax Guys, and we'll be on there live. And we'll be also doing some Facebook Live stuff, too.
And we'll also be posting up on the Facebook page what our broadcast schedule on the Spreaker platform is going to be, because that's going to kind of be, put together on the fly. Yeah. We're thinking an hour in the morning and an hour in the afternoon on the 3 main days, or on at least the 2 main days, Thursday and Friday, and maybe on Saturday morning as well.
And if we get more people to interview, we'll be doing more live stuff.
All right. But until then, that's going to wrap it up for this edition of FAIRtax Power Radio. I'm Bob Paxton.
And I'm Ron Malero.
We are the FAIRtax Guys, reminding you that the fair tax is America's big solution, and once you understand it,
you'll demand it.
Fair tax is coming.